Greetings and welcome, everyone. This is Into the Nexus, the podcast all about Heroes of the Storm. I'm Garrett Weinzierl, joined as always by Kyle Fergusson, and rejoining us for the first time in a little bit, our good friend, Not Paradox. How are you doing, dude?
I'm doing pretty good. It has been a little bit, but you guys have had some like pretty awesome guests on, so I'm perfectly fine. If I can step back and you guys have some Blizzard employees on here, that is fine by me.
No one puts Paradox in a corner. We'll just do Brew last week and then bring you one this week. It all works.
It all works out.
Oh, wait, AZ Jackson's calling. Awesome. We'll talk to you later, buddy.
Right. Oh, man. He's great. Like,
but we need you this week because we're going stat heavy. It's the 2-week check-in.
It is.
Seeing what's going on with Medallions today and the balance and other things as well.
There's been a lot that's gone down in the game since the last time you were on the show. And we didn't talk about it too much last week because last week was like our Heroes of the Storm art special with Kinnebrew. So if you missed it, folks, you should go check it out. It's on your feed. Just go back one episode. It's right there. Just hit the play button. But anyways, before we get into the meat of the show and talk about where the meta has settled after 2 full weeks with a very notable patch, bringing some major changes to the game and some of those reworks with them, we want to thank those of you who are supporting us over at patreon.com/ITN. And it's very fitting to thank you on days like this because of your support, we can pay our guests. We pay them for their time, and we really appreciate you allowing us to do that, as well as giving you some other perks. If you want access to our Discord channel where you can chat with other patrons, maybe get together for some games, or join our monthly patron Heroes of the Storm games, head on over to patreon.com/ITN and you can support our show, get yourself some perks, and also support our guests. But with that in mind, let's move straight into this week's Heroes of the Storm news.
We're on, boys! Ha-ha! Let's liven up this place!
Point me to the stage.
Stay a while and listen.
And stay a while and talk and then listen. I will do. So it's been 2 weeks, as you said, Kyle, and there's been a lot of feelings, posts, deliberation, upvotes, downvotes, opinions about the Gladiator's Medallion. And I'm assuming for us, there's just been a lot of playing with and maybe forgetting the existence of the Gladiator's Medallion more than we may want to admit. This isn't personal at all.
It's easier when things are more serious, particularly when I'm like fighting a Diablo. It's very easy to know like, oh, he wants to do this thing, which would lead to this amount of disasters to follow it. But sometimes it just never goes clicked in a game.
Yeah, it's easy to kind of forget about it. All right, both of you, can I get extremely personal with like a nerdy tie-in to World of Warcraft and the Gladiator's Medallion?
Oh, for sure, because that was like the first thing I thought of when I read it. I was like, oh, it's just the PvP trinket. But I was going to mention an analogy to it later anyway, so have at it.
I have a very specific problem with Gladiator's Medallion, and specifically key bindings in Heroes of the Storm, which is when I go and play World of Warcraft, I rebind all of the hotkeys past number 5. I don't want to reach for 6, 7, and onwards. So in place of like 6, 7, and 8, I bind F, T, and G. And then like the second action bar above it, I have like Shift, F, G, and T, and Control, Shift, F, G, and T. Whatever. That's how I do my stuff in World of Warcraft. And on all of my characters, all of them, F is my break CC cooldown, whatever it is. If it's a Gladiator's Medallion trinket in PvP, that it's on F. If I'm playing a class that has a break CC ability, it's on F. If I'm playing a race that has a racial passive that breaks CC, it's on F. So I can customize my keybind of Gladiator's Medallion in Heroes of the Storm. That's no problem. But I tried putting it on F, and R is kind of important in Heroes of the Storm, and it's kind of close to the F key.
Yeah.
So either I'm accidentally hitting R and popping my heroic when I don't want to, or I'm using my heroic and popping my Gladiator's Medallion when I don't want to. And so
Interesting.
I just wanted to share this story with you and the fine listeners at home because it's causing me a great deal of anxiety.
I have a bit of a different sorry, you go first, Kyle.
Okay, because
I'll remember mine. It's stuck in my brain. I was going to talk about it no matter what this episode. So
maybe we all have different problems because I've been playing MOBAs for, oh my goodness, the number always goes up because years go by, but 15 years now. So hitting R wrongfully is about as bad as you could do it. So I'm not having that problem. But I have a whole new problem because I also chose F because that's Fade on my priest in World of Warcraft. And whenever I become scared, I hit the F key. Well, so it's been working perfect.
Let's be honest here. I mean, I'm assuming, Kyle, you chose F in World of Warcraft for the same reason I did, because when I go, oh, fudge, I press the F key.
No, it's literally because Fade starts with F for a priest. It has nothing to do with dropping bombs, but I like
literally
that.
refer to it as my O F word button.
I like that.
Yeah.
My problem, however, is though, I can't find where to rebind my turrets and my items. So, which is on the F key.
Yeah, it's on the F key.
I don't know how to, I've been having to like click my weapon onto the ground like I'm playing, 2001 video gaming here.
I believe it's called the action button. In the key bindings, it's called the action button. Something like that. Okay. Yeah, it's called something like that. Because I was going through key bindings because a friend of mine's like, unkeybind this, unkeybind this, unkeybind this. And like he unkeybind the action button. And I was like, what is an action button? So I went in and I was like, let's see what's on that key. And by default, because all my key bindings are just a teeny bit different. So I was like, what's on that key? And that's what it was. So I think it's called the action button or the item use. Map mechanic, that's what it's called. Map mechanic.
What does it do? Because it gave me a warning when I unbound it, and I was just like, what the hell is map mechanic?
Well, if you pick up like a turret, you can't drop it if you don't have the map mechanic thing keybound. So like if you switch off of F, you're going to have to switch it over to like...
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Else. So since then, I've moved it over to G, which I don't like as much because I still have this brain like sense memory reflex of hitting F when I get CC'd. But gotcha. That's why I haven't even been thinking about it. I thought about it when I unbound it, played a few games. I was like, nope, I'm hitting R on accident, or I'm hitting F on accident. And I'm moving it over to G. But still.
No, G is mind flay. You can't have it there. And
G is
master spell. You can't have it there
for sure. Like,
G is usually some sort of self-healing ability.
Now, I have had a completely separate problem when playing Gaslow with the focused turrets, and I hit T all the time for taunt. So it's funny that one additional button in this game has caused my entire brain to bring up these old World of Warcraft issues I have.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because this brought back like a really old muscle memory for me, which was I used to always put it back in League of Legends. I used to always put Zhonya's on 1. And whenever I have an ice block in game, I always put it on 1. So I figured I could put the Medallion on 1. But when I started moving it to 1 at the start of a game, I messed up every other muscle memory I've had from every other hero that I've had. So I started playing other heroes that I would get an ability that would pop up on 1. And whenever I would need that ability, I would Medallion. So I was like, okay, I have to put it on a different thing or else I ruin all of these other things for my other heroes. But yeah, the thing that kind of got me about Medallion when I thought about World of Warcraft is in World of Warcraft, you use the Medallion to remove a CC that's currently locking you down. Where the Medallion, you can't use it while stunned or silenced. So you have to use it before a stun's going off, which is a little different from the Medallions and WoW. So that part really threw me off because when I initially read the Medallion, I was basing almost all of my commentary on the Medallion off of if it worked like World of Warcraft's Medallion. So I have to like redo my whole idea of Medallion now that I've seen it being played, now that I've played with it a bunch. And I do think it's funny because there's certain abilities that I've noticed people will almost always Medallion. And there's a lot of abilities that I think people expected there to be more medallion usage when there's really not. Like the one like Apocalypse on Diablo is one of them that like I've been watching a lot of games, and whenever Apocalypse goes off, everyone just stands there and they're like, we're gonna medallion this. And I've seen entire teams medallion an Apocalypse, and there was one game that was being casted between two Div B teams, and that's literally what happened. 4 of the members stood in Apocalypse instead of moving and just medallioned it and continued fighting. And I was like, is that worth it? And I asked a couple of the members of the team after the game, and they're like, we just forget to use it otherwise. So we figured if we used it on one team fight to win, we might as well like get it. And that was their whole reason. They're like, we didn't really want to move out of Apocalypse because it was a good fight for us, and we always forget to use it anyways. Like, no, we didn't coordinate that we would all use it. We just all thought the same thing, and that's what happened. And it was just like 4 medallions for an Apocalypse seems like a pretty great job for an Apocalypse to remove 4 medallions. But if they weren't like using their medallions anyways, then it's fine. They ended up winning that game off of that fight anyways. So it was like, I don't know, it's such an odd one because I feel like it's not being used anywhere near as much as anyone expected it to be.
Yeah, in like, especially in our games at home, right? Like, there's a lot more. Some of the conversation happening in the community is really framing it under the spotlight of organized play, which that even the mileage varies there. But the games at home, man, like totally forgetting. I've gone entire games this week. Like I'm in week 2 now. I've still gone through entire games being like, oh right, I had Medallion. Shoot.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've had those. And then like D.Va, oh my gosh. I've been trying to play a lot of D.Va lately, and they need to fix this. Every time you switch forms, your medallion goes back to 6.
Oh, I mean, they just need to fix D.Va because she's so much better than Gaslow, and I think the Gaslow rework is so much more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I just like W build for D.Va, so it's like the rework for me was like, this is awesome. But at the same time, I don't know. But yeah, that's so annoying. And it's probably going to be a fix on the next patch for sure, because they're usually pretty quick to things like that. Other things, not so much, but something like that, it seems like they would be pretty quick too. But yeah, I think, I don't know, the medallion's so interesting just because it's like, it could make a huge difference. But I've even been watching like high level scrims, and there's a lot of times where like outside of late game fights where one chain CC would have closed out the game, it still, even in the highest levels of scrims and the highest levels of gameplay, it doesn't seem like it's making that much of a difference outside of, again, like that 1 or 2 late game fights where it's like Diablo's charging in and it's like if he doesn't hit the wall right, the medallion goes before the flip and then they walk away, and it would have been a pretty solid kill. Those are the only times I've really seen like they make a huge difference in the competitive scene. So it's definitely interesting. I think the 5-minute cooldown is exactly where I want it to be if it does end up staying. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's where I guess I kind of agree with the critiques, or that's a critique I kind of agree with the most, is that it disproportionately affects different abilities within the game, which makes sense to a certain degree. But let's tie it into our favorite catchphrase here, which is it depends. Like the medallion is such a giant shining example of it depends. Because yeah, Kira, Butcher, Diablo, as you mentioned, that's the kind of thing where it's like there's a telegraph and you have a very clear tell that you should maybe consider popping your medallion. But if you have something like Uther with like a point and click stun, well, you're already stunned. Too bad. Sorry.
Yep. Even like ETC, like the slide, a lot of people are like, oh, well, you can unstoppable the slide and then you can walk away from the mosh. And it's like, but that slide happens faster than most people think. And a lot of times, like ETC's already kind of near you. And it's like, oh, well, is he going to slide? And then like, you could slide, and it's like, and if people pop medallion first, he doesn't mosh. And it's like, there's a lot of them that people thought would have been really, really powerful against. But because you can't just break the CC, it's too late. It's already too late. And that's the hard part about it. Is there's just too many times where it's too late to cast it. So anything that's really predictable, but that's also something that you can balance off of. Like if Varian charging in and you unstoppable before the taunt, or Butcher or any of those, like if the medallion's really killing those, you can balance off of those. But I do wonder, like, again, I like to ask this every time that an anomaly comes out or a change comes out is, what is the problem in the game that it's trying to fix, and does it fix that? And I believe they specifically kind of answered this when they said chain CC is the reason we thought about doing the medallion, that when you got to the late game, there was nothing you could do. You couldn't play your hero. And does it fix that problem? And I'd be curious to ask your guys' opinion on this. Now that we've had it for a while, do you feel like it's solving the problem of chain CC?
In some scenarios is my answer. It depends on which hero is initiating the chain CC, because if it's something that is essentially instant, I don't think it is successful in that regard.
Right, but I would say from my own tank perspective that roots are the primary thing that I remove with a Gladiator's Medallion, because I can click it during the root. Yep. And as a tank, my positioning is being ruined, and something could go horribly wrong as Kael'thas keeps walking forward at pace that I was walking forward on my team. But that's also the primary CC that's going to lead to my death. Whereas if I absorb an Uther stun on a tank, I'm like, thank you. That's the kind of thing I as tank want to take from the enemy team. But a root like a Malfurion, I'm stuck in there. Everyone's stuck in there. It's a problem. I got to peel right now. And my hope originally for the Gladiator's Medallion was that we would have less staggers in the late game. And I think that's happening, but in all honesty right now, I'm at Diamond 1 right at the moment, and I'm not sure if the play just got better or if the Gladiator's Medallion is succeeding in that job, because people aren't getting, Falstad's not off level 22 dying solo in a lane at this league.
Yeah, I'm failing to think of an exact example, but I definitely have been in late game scenarios where I felt the medallion completely saved my bacon in something that otherwise would have ended in my own death late game with a long death timer and possibly snowballed us into a loss from there. Because my gut reaction when they announced this was that I liked this, and I still feel like overall I like this. I like the little extra layer it adds. It's probably the most wishy-washy I've been on all of these anomalies, because I think there's a lot of good discussion being had by the community. I think at least I was over on Reddit taking a look at the conversation that was happening around the medallion, and you're always going to see your comment here or there that goes too far, or is just a little too dogmatic. But the rest of it, there were some interesting conversations being had. There were people talking about one suggestion I saw was have it just be a consumable, it's used up once you use it. You get one per game and that's it. And that's kind of interesting to me. I'm not saying I think it's the correct answer, but that's an interesting discussion point on how this could be altered without removing it from the game entirely. And then my brain goes one further and goes, well, if we're having this conversation about how it disproportionately affects different abilities, if it was consumable, and I'm going to pose this question to both of you, Kyle and Not Paradox. Let's take that Reddit suggestion and run with it. Let's say this is a once a game on usability. Use it and you never get to use it again for the rest of that game of Heroes of the Storm. Could we make it break CC?
I think so.
Balance-wise, yeah, but ooh.
It's tricky. I mean, it's definitely tricky. I think at the end of the day, whenever they make a change like this, if it disproportionately affects abilities, you can always balance off of those abilities. If it's affecting Varian Taunt too much, it's let's just buff up his stats a little bit so he's better in the fights that he was worse at, because now he's going to be worse at the thing that he was best at. But if we remove a CC, it would be the same thing, really. It would just require more balance. I feel like people would be... Am I crazy? So you guys play D&D, right? I know for sure one of you plays D&D, but
Kyle much D&D? More than I have. But yeah, I have enough knowledge.
Do you ever use one-time consumable items, or they just sit there forever? I swear, I hold on to these things forever. No matter what they are, I probably have 30 of them that are one-time uses that I will. They give me a set of beads that can be reused. I'm like, oh man, I'm using these all the time. But they give me something that I can only ever use once. I'm never using that thing. I'm wondering if that's going to end up being what it is, though. Is if you don't ever get it back, I wonder if just most people just never use that. Maybe in competitive it makes a difference here and there once or twice, but Otherwise, just no one ever uses it because I feel like I would never use that.
I mean, I don't think in the few campaigns I've played of D&D I've ever gotten a single use item, but I'm definitely a pack rat in games. Like, y'all should have seen my freaking inventory in Resident Evil 4.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, that's a big philosophical thing with gamers, right? A lot of gamers are pack rats. A lot of gamers don't use items and just kind of hold on to them forever.
Well, you might need it later.
Exactly.
That's the thing. You might need it later.
Yes.
So you're about to die in a level 22 fight, right? And I know we're all pushing for that level 30 power spike. So I'm gonna hold on because I know there's gonna be a more important fight later.
My problem with a consumable one-time use full break or any sort of full break in this game is I lose the entire impressiveness of the enemy team's move. Like when I go in on ETC and someone actually like unstoppables as I go into connect, I'm like, whoa, nice job, Rainer. That was cool. I feel rewarded. I'm having this exchange with the enemy player and we had a moment. Or he's like bailing on the party I set up in the other scenario. It was nice. It was a nice mosh pit and he just walks out of it. That's not cool.
Yeah, there's some that are like even in its current state. I kind of just stopped running Ring of Frost. Like I can't do it. Like I got one amazing ring in a late game and just 3 medallions, and I was like that would have been game over. And it wasn't even a chain CC. Like that's the thing is like that was a single CC. I land a ring, I go for Icy Veins, I'm gonna kill 3 people after level 20. But they all use their medallion and left. And for me, it's like that felt really bad because it was like I landed a really, really good ring and it didn't answer the chain part of that. It just was the first CC and I was able to kill on that 1 CC. But is that also a problem? Landing 1 CC after level 20 is game over? That's also the question. But it's like at that point, can we lower the cooldown of Ring of Frost or something? Because like it's a difficult ability to land. And especially the higher rank when everyone's paying attention to it. And it's like, is there anything that we can do about that? Roots definitely feel worse since Medallion. Stuns feel stronger. And I feel like reapplied slows feel stronger. Like an Arthas slow where his root gets nerfed. I think his E feels so much better right now.
Those are all really, really good points. And yet we've experienced similar kind of knock-on effects with past changes to the game. I think the big one being the base movement speed increase, because remember how much we were talking about how they needed to increase the projectile speed of like every skill shot in the game. I include in that the projectile that is Misha charging. Like I complained about it a ton because I was just missing so many charges and the correct answer was just run backwards. Not strafe, not juke, nothing. Just run backwards. You move fast enough. And this was true of Hungering Arrow, or you pick your skill shot, right? And for the most part, they didn't make adjustments. There were a couple case scenarios I'm forgetting right now, but I know I remember some dev comments where they were like, yeah, the movement speed hurt a little bit too much here. But for the most part, they just let the dust settle, and we kind of adjusted.
Yeah.
But boy, it is difficult for me to look at you through VoIP paradox and say that we're just going to adjust to Ring of Frost being valueless, which is rough because, yeah, that's a very strong example.
Well, what's the cooldown on Ring of Frost?
It's 80 seconds, but here's the
3
thing,
years.
Right?
Okay. That's what it feels like. 3 years.
It's 80 seconds unless you get the level 20 upgrade and then hitting 3 people. It's 50 seconds. So it's like I was level 20. I did take that upgrade because I don't really like the little teleport. You move like this far. Here's the thing. This is all a conspiracy. You want to know why this is all a conspiracy? So by nerfing Ring of Frost, you're buffing Water Elemental, and they just brought out a new Jaina statue that has a Water Elemental in it. So this is all to bring in more money. Confirmed here. Blizzard they did the medallion to sell more Jaina statues. That's it. I'm buying one, but that's it right there. That's exactly why they did this. This is the whole reason for the medallion. All of Blizzard came together. The whole conglomerate of Blizzard came together to sell a $36 statue. It's actually a really cool looking statue.
Also,
to be honest.
the first Book of Heroes single player edition in Hearthstone is Jaina. So Illuminati confirmed. I feel like I'm on a podcast with two Kyle Fergussons.
Mm-hmm.
Hold up, I'm trying to find when the Sylvanas statue came out and when her rework was.
Oh my God, Kyle! Kyle, stop.
So you got to first say which Sylvanas statue. There's like 5 of them.
Kyle, you are so on brand. The good one. Kyle's talking about like the good $500 one.
Big one.
Yeah. Not that extremely just
the
awful
tiny
looking action figure.
One. Yeah.
The action figure one they just put out recently, where the face just looks all kinds of messed up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we respect the devs enough that they're not making balance changes for Funko Pops. But
no, I'm just messing around. But yeah, it does. It kind of buffs Water Elemental a little bit, nerfs Ring of Frost a little bit. But again, the slow is still anytime that they're now. This is something that I actually do kind of like. Permanent slows in the game, where if you can pretty much land one ability or one thing, you're slowing someone forever. Water Elemental is one of those. If you're ever chasing someone and you hit them once with Water Elemental, they will die, because if they're like the last person in a fight or whatever, they will die because they're slowed forever. You can keep up with them forever. Same thing with like Alexstrasza's E. I mean, not that we need a nerf for Alexstrasza's E build, because we don't. But Alexstrasza's E, if she lands the second E even once, you're slowed enough to where she lands every single E. So I know it seems small to Medallion something like that, but it actually could be the difference between you live or die, purely because she can keep landing that forever. So I think permanent slows that have to be reapplied to stay permanent, it's kind of an unintentional like nerf to like overchase, or like answering like the overchase, successful overchases. I don't know, it's kind of a weird one, but I do think there's some interesting changes to it, and using it offensively. I mean, one of my favorite things to do, right as I saw that it gave 1 second of unstoppable to yourself, first hero I played was Lucio, and I'm like, I'm going to unstoppable myself before I drop down a sound barrier. And I was like, that way you cannot interrupt a sound barrier. And if you get a good sound barrier in a fight, that fight is over. So for me, I was like, this is it. This is like peak Lucio right now. But I mean, a
Dark
5-minute
Conversion,
cooldown.
when I was really starting.
Oh, Dark Conversion. Yeah, same thing. That one's pretty funny.
All right, I got the answer, by the way. They may have held off on the removing the disable of structures from abilities for up to 8 months to sell the statue.
To 8 months to sell the statue. Oh man!
All right, you two aren't allowed to do a show together anymore. I'm putting my foot down.
All right, so we got a lot of stats available to us. There are a lot of swingy heroes right now going up and down. Some of them make sense in conjunction with other buffs and nerfs. Some of them are reworks and are going to be a mystery. What's interesting is that we didn't see a large increase in auto attacker win rates, which was one of my big suspect areas. I was hoping that maybe a Zul'jin would suddenly climb a bunch because he's now able to remove his own blinds in that one most important fight of the game where he's going to dingo at 20. That didn't happen at all. In fact, most auto attackers in this game barely moved.
Hey man, Zul'jin is up a whopping 0.2%.
Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's enough to bring him back. But like Tyriel jumped up 7.7%. And if we wanted to, theorize why, we could say like, well, he's not CC dependent. He doesn't really have, Holy Ground. That's not going to be changed by CC. The Sanctification is a ground effect technically, so you can't do a thing about that once it's out. Nearly instant there.
I need to start checking with you.
The other thing about Sanctification is the same thing about Lucio, right? In higher levels, if you get your Sanctification interrupted, there goes like 90% of the reason that you're running Tyriel in high ranks. So you can unstoppable your Sanctification, so it always gets off. So in a situation where you are running Sanctification, that's really good.
I didn't know you were looking at the patch as a whole. I thought you were just looking at the last week, Kyle. All right, I figured out what you're looking at. Yeah, man, Tyriel has popped up, nestling right underneath Diva.
Yeah, Our other big one was Sergeant Hammer, which makes a lot of sense because everybody gets crazy about CCing and diving Hammer. So she's got 2 buttons for it. And I know, like with Garrosh right now, I'm always using Indomitable as an engage, but I always have the Gladiator's Medallion for that just in case get out. And that has made that character easier to play.
Yeah. Interesting stuff.
There's weird ones like White Mane and, Phoenix. When I see a Phoenix die, it's usually because they almost teleport, but they don't, and a CC hits them. So that could be that. You got Urel, who's got to wait all the way to 20, who's up a little bit. But the big down is Chromie, who got nerfed, but her previous build was all about temporal looping for that reduced cooldown, and if people can walk out.
I mean, even the slowing sands got buffed, and it's like it's a 1 second unstoppable. So from any point in the slowing sands, if you have the full slow on you, you can just pop the unstoppable and walk in any direction, and you're out of that slowing sand. So like worst case, if that's what was going to kill you, you're out. So Chromie, two nerfs in a row, really.
A little rough there. Genji, I can't think of this one. There's no CC on the guy. I can't think of a thing you'd maybe click Unstoppable for, and why would that make your win rate go down? I've seen a lot of Dragon Blades. Maybe people are thinking they can Dragon Blade and pop their CC, and actually it's not the better right
I've seen
now.
a ton of Dragon Blades, man. I've seen a lot of Genji, weirdly enough. I don't know. That one I'm going full tinfoil hat and say the Overwatch players are back because of May, and they're jumping on Genji
and Diva,
without much experience. Yeah. That's what I'm just going to throw that out into the universe.
There are that could definitely be it. I know a lot of times win rates fluctuate a lot when you have a higher popularity, when your hero starts gaining popularity for any reason. And I know Genji's been being used a little bit more in the competitive scene, so there's a chance if people are watching the streams or trying to learn him, they pick him up more, his win rate falls. That happens with a lot of heroes. Actually, this happens a lot when heroes get buffed. People want to play that hero more, so you get more people who are unfamiliar with a hero playing a hero, so it actually lowers the win rate even though the hero got buffed. Same thing with nerfs. Like a nerf will happen and it's like for the hero's win rate goes up because the nerf wasn't that big, but it was big enough to scare off the people who don't normally play that hero. So it could be something like that with Genji. He did receive a bunch of like really tiny buffs over the course of things, but not too many recently. And then also a lot more people in the competitive scene have been using him for, Madara is a great example of it. Madara, his team, he's at like number 1 or 2 GM right now, top 5. I haven't really looked at the leaderboards, but his team has been running Genji a lot, and he's been running Genji in scrims. So it's like if anyone's watching any of those streams, they're gonna be like, "Whoa, look what Genji's doing! I want to play Genji," and they don't really know exactly what they're doing because he's a very difficult hero to get value out of. He does very little damage if you're not doing everything perfectly.
And we have great examples of what you're talking about in our balance. The buffs for Alarak and Stitches both caused those heroes to go down. And the Stitches was a bit more lane clear. Alarak was a little bit of health and a lightning talent. So I still don't think lightning talent is back for Alarak. So probably people got pulled in the wrong direction, perhaps. But
if they got pulled in the direction of even wanting to select Stitches, they were pulled in the wrong direction.
Ooh.
Right.
Ooh. But on the other side of things, ETC and Orpheus went up, and same with Urel. Like we saw quite a few heroes that got decent nerfs, just weather the storm.
Yeah, Orpheus was actually going to be the example I used in that. It's that her nerf was not that bad, but it might be like enough to scare people off from playing her. Except for the people that play her all the time. Like I still play Orpheus right now, and I still think she's extremely strong in the exact build that they nerfed. Because I thought she was way overpowered before it was nerfed, and I still think it's very strong. And
she's an aggressive mage that needs to close the distance to maximize her output, and so she's constantly putting herself in harm's way of roots, of slows, of everything that the Medallion can help against.
Oh yeah, she's and that's the thing. The Medallion's tricky for her because it's like you don't use it to like set up or follow up an ability or anything. It's mainly just for like if you get rooted, because you're always moving around so much. But if you get rooted in place, like that's the only time you really are going to die on Orphea. Like otherwise, you're just all over the place and you're healing so much. But yeah, if you get rooted, you're in trouble. So definitely Medallion is something that will help her out a lot. But yeah, a lot of these changes are very interesting.
Where are you at on Deckard right now?
I mean, having his root getting nerfed does affect like the Sapphire into the root, but it happens so often that I feel like you're going to be burning a lot of medallions on him. There's a chance that I haven't seen his actual numbers, but I could see him going up in win rate just because of you're able to burn a lot of medallions. But they also did nerf Ruby, so maybe his win rate went down because of the nerf to Ruby. But yeah, I'd imagine his win rate probably actually went down. Let me see.
It did.
Do you have it
he's,
up?
he's
Okay,
down.
yeah.
He's down,
Down
about
3%.
3%, down to 47.6. Right there with Tyrande, who also fell over 4%.
I could see Tyrande because if you don't have your timing perfectly, she was the follow-up for the longest time. I mean, two years of competitive. She was the follow-up. If we go back to like HGC, if you saw the first two heroes that were picked almost every game, it was Deckard and Tyrande. Tyrande, Deckard. It's because
you mean Diablo, right?
No, I'm serious. Deckard and Tyrande were the two in HGC that were first picked like so many times. They were within like the first couple of picks. And it's because they had such amazing follow-up to people like Diablo, to people like ETC or anything like that. And that was the chain CC that I think they were trying to answer. And I think if you time that stun even a little too slow, you're like, you just medallion it. So like if the taunt goes off and you're just mashing the medallion on, I mean, like say a Varian taunt, and it's being followed up by a Tyrande, if you mash the medallion, you get it in time, you don't get stunned by Tyrande, which usually the stun comes out and then she walks up and lowers the armor, because the stun's a longer range than the armor removal. So if you don't get hit by that stun, you don't get hit by the armor removal, and you don't get hit by the owl, because you want to remove the armor before you hit them with the owl. So you end up not getting hit by so many other things if you can just medallion the stun. So I'd imagine that's probably why her win rate dropped, even though, well, it also could be the other thing too. She got a buff relatively recently to her healing. So it could also be another thing where like more people are playing her and also the medallion hit.
I think we saw her go up after her buff. And so this seems to be, I mean, I'm filtering at this moment by the most recent patch. So this is just post
Just the medallion, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there might be some wanderlust too along our supports. They've been on a wild ride this year, going from basically res Ariel madness every single game to bloodlust over to Deckard, and now Whitemane's on top, which isn't a huge surprise because they're a passionate, weird group. Follow that up with things like, Brightwing, which makes sense because that is snappy. Nobody diving is going to be, Muradin's not going to go, let's go, and then unstoppable wherever he ends up in range of a polymorph just to stop that. But that can lead to a dead Muradin, or particularly a Kharazim is one of my favorite polymorph targets. But we're starting to see more supports fall under the 50% mark with this patch. And that's interesting because we don't have a new hotness. And that was the trend we had for this whole year. Somebody always got their heroic, their super solo queue able thing buffed to extreme and then removed, and someone else took their place. So right now, I mean, granted, I was doing bronze replay reviews this week, so I saw a bunch of Moraleses, so I really have bad perspective at the moment because they love Morales down there, man. I don't know why. I don't know why.
I mean, Morales is relatively easy, and Stimdrone works with a lot of the heroes that are that people in those ranks really like, because you have heroes that are really common in those ranks is like Butcher and Varian and Artanis. Artanis is so popular in those ranks, so Stimdrone gets a lot of value. But I think that's mainly the reasons for it. I actually think Morales is better than most people make her out to be, especially against Burst. Because wherever that first stun, I used to use her instead of a cleanse, because it was like wherever that first stun would go to, if there was going to be a chain CC, you throw your W with one talent, your W would last throughout the entire CC. and it would be a 50%. Or I don't think it was ever 50, but it was a pretty decent amount of damage reduction on the target. So she was decent against burst, but I think there's better options for it usually. So that's kind of where that comes from. Hey, new hotness for healers though. Uther W build. Just saying.
Yeah.
Thank you. Told you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about the top, because there's some the OP is being thrown around a bit, for obvious reasons. I mean, we had some changes recently, so of course I'm talking about Cho'Gall.
Mm-hmm.
Freaking Cho'Gall is it's like wading out into Here's the Storm right now is like freaking Jaws. Like, I'm just like praying to God Cho'Gall isn't in my waters.
Yeah, that stun Cho'Gall build is like, I was really expecting it to be nerfed when because that was one that people were kind of asking for with all the other ones. They actually hit the nail on the head this last patch with everyone that like a lot of the high ranked players were doing. Like Leon Black made a post on, I think it was Leon Black, I might have it wrong. He made a post and he's like, if you are in Grandmasters, here are the 8 heroes that need to be nerfed that didn't get hit during the patch. And then Blizzard nerfed like 7 of those. And it was like, or 6 of those. And it was just Cho'Gall was the last one on his list. And I was like, yeah, the stun build's a bit wild. If you get to 16, it's rough. And if you get to 20, they're practically mosh pitting an entire team for 6 seconds. Like, it's wild. And if you nano boost them after 16, same thing. It's wild.
I mean, if people aren't familiar with what's going on here, it's a bizarre history lesson of how the patches compounded on each other, but there is a talent where your orbs increase in size when they bounce. And this allows you to have the orbs overlap each other. And with the reverse talent that causes leaden orb to now stun, you can get caught in place for about 5 seconds of stun lock, stun action. And they're running Twilight Hammer with this, so you can bop them straight back into the exact position where the stun chain would start with a stun. I would love, if I were to broadcast my idea for it, I want to see the Molten Block become a breakable. Like Johanna's Shield unstoppable, like a lot of abilities we have in this game. If you fire through that, if you target
kind of
it down...
like Maze, right? A little bit like Maze.
Yeah, May or Kerrigan has her chrysalis that she jumps into. Like, we have a lot of examples like this, but to go fully invincible while Gall is still firing is where I draw the line.
Yeah, I like the build and I like the idea, and I almost don't want them to remove it. But I'm wondering if they just move Leaden Orb to 20 and they move the level 20 talent down to 16. Because the level 20 talent down to 16 is just going to be a little bit more damage. But like the stun, I feel, is what makes it oppressive. But it's also what makes that build fun. So it's like, I don't want them to remove it or just nerf it, but finding a way to like just move it to a later tier, because level 20 talents are supposed to be like that. They're supposed to be crazy strong. But I feel like getting level 16, having a nano boost to be able to mosh an entire team for 6 seconds is a little wild. And this is an uninterruptible mosh too. This is a mosh that you can't just CC Cho because it's Gall that's doing all the stunning. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's a weird back and forth, because if you mess with Leaden Orb, people go back to Deafening Blast, which certainly isn't as bad, but that's a 1.25 silence. And if it was at 20, maybe you could even get both the silence and the Leaden Orb. So it's clearly going to be a big balancing act there for Cho'Gall.
True.
That's some scary stuff for sure. All right, let's talk about D.Va. Where are we following? Where are we following on D.Va? Because my only experience with this hero is in Quick Match, because she hasn't made it through a single draft game since the patch for me. But her win rate is like off the charts, and when I go into Quick Match, I'm playing Gaslow because I'm trying to have a good time, and I just die to the D.Va.
You saying divas aren't having a good time? I think they're doing a
no. I'm just saying I'm trying to have a good time, and it's ruined by just oh man, even today, man. Oh, it was beautiful. Like, I just go into Quick Match. I'm like, I just want to get in a Gazlowe game real quick. Get thrown on the Braxis. Oh yeah, sweet. I'm gonna rock this solo lane, and D.Va is across the lane from me. It was just a nightmare.
Yeah. Diva's really strong right now in multiple builds. I think W build only really needs like one nerf, and that's just the level 16 talent. The amount of self-healing you get sometimes is a little wild. But I mean, maybe that's okay. But otherwise, I think they just kind of like overloaded her kit a little bit too much. Like, I feel like everyone kind of had a couple different answers to how to fix Diva in her old state, and I feel like they just grabbed every answer that was on the Reddit and they just used all of them, because that's kind of what it feels like. Yeah, it was like, let's just use all of them and let's have a really cool Diva. Diva's really fun to play right now, but she does feel pretty strong, so I think she'll be relatively easy to balance though, because for the most part, it's numbers. They need to decide, do they want to keep her tankiness? And if they do, they just need to drop down her damage a little bit. Do they want to keep her damage? They just drop down her tankiness a little bit. And I think for the rest of it, it should be relatively easy to balance. I find CC heroes is where you have the hardest time balancing, because it's like, well, even if they don't do any damage and they're not tanky, if their CC's that good, they're going to be strong. And that's what we saw with Maiev. Maiev went through like 25 nerfs in a row between her PTR, where she used to have armor, she used to have the health of a bruiser, she used to have so many other things. But like, as long as she had the ability to fly in from half the map, grab 5 people and pull them towards the team, she's always going to be strong no matter what her stats are. In competitive anyways, but that's kind of where it's easy. I think it's gonna be a lot easier for them to balance Diva, just because it's just a numbers game. It's just should be anyways.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, the interesting thing is, like, there are clearly talents that are kind of rising to the top, but every talent picked has a positive, has a higher than 50% win rate. It just doesn't. It doesn't really matter. So, yeah, and you're right. Like, most of the talents, the abilities, like we're dealing with damage numbers, with healing numbers, with percent-based increases, with how long slows and whatnot last. Like, all of those things, those are all knobs that can be turned.
So, I was sad about nuclear option. I landed it once and then everybody got wise and I wasted my
now, man, every time I see a bomb now, I'm like, I don't trust it. I'm out early. I don't trust it. That bomb is the imposter and it's going to get voted off, but I'm out. I leave as fast as possible when I see bombs now, just because it's like, there's no risk in it. Even though not a lot of people are running that talent, you can't trust it. The first bomb, you got to check. You got to leave the bomb, press tab, check the talents, and then you can go back in. But no, that I don't trust it. It's a rough one. I just love W build, but I mean, I'll stay over here in my little corner, just giving you guys all a little shade. But yeah, no, I don't trust any bombs anymore.
Yeah. And then on the flip side is poor Gaslow, who I think we might. I'm chalking this up to just a lot of people who haven't played Gaslow before. And even if you have, he has changed a decent amount. So, because I mean, he's got a lot of games logged, more games than usual.
Yeah, Gaslow, I actually I mean, that's the thing that's so tricky, is a lot of people say that he feels really weak right now, but like, I feel like he's still getting a lot of work done with what he's got.
This is like my hipster hero right now, man. I love the new Gaslow. I freaking won a Storm League game with him this week. Like, I actually drafted him on purpose. Like, it felt good. It feels good. I really like his kit. Like, the only time I've been bummed is when I take him into quick match and get matched against the Diva. It's just like, it's hard not to make that comparison because they both got the rework in the same patch, but they're such different heroes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's also an issue there in that Gaslow's now labeled as a bruiser, and in quick match where you don't get a tank, Gaslow is no longer bruiser, but tank against Imperius or Diva or any of these sort of characters, Chen, who might be a little bit better at that job than Gaslow can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, enjoy the hipsterness while it lasts, because I mean, this guy went from 4% pick rate up to 23%. And Diva's even more extreme. She's gone from 2% participation in Storm League games to 45%. Granted, most of those are bans, but still. Like, these reworks are successes in terms of numbers, selling skins, whatever it may be.
Skellen, it's all about the statues, Kyle. You got to understand.
Right, I forgot. The Gaslow statue's coming out.
Yeah, the Gaslow statue's coming out. The Diva statue, I mean, that is a big buck statue. Did you know that was just on sale? It was only $350 the other day. That's a good sale. It was $500 now. It was $350.
But we got
Diva rework. Just saying.
Yeah, we got Garrett on the show. Garrett
is the real seller of statues.
What, Kyle?
Hotslogs, stats, and statues. We have a section.
All right, Daryl, you're in the chat room. Daryl, I need an infographic by the end of the episode. We don't have data for statue sales.
Compare those for statue prices.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. I almost bought that Sylvana statue we were talking about earlier when it went on sale, by the way. I love that statue so much. I want it so bad. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I really am enjoying Gaslow though. It's kind of the only thing I want to play right now. I blew a bunch of gems on all of his SCV tints because I love that skin.
Yeah, it's a cool skin.
It's very cool.
The red one looks like Blaze too much. I will say that my brain, when I see Blaze and Gaslow running together, which I think is being done purposefully in the high leagues.
Boy, you two just brought the tinfoil hats. You've got like an assembly line of them. You just keep swapping them out. It's nuts. Take a look at talent pick rates and win rates, everybody, if you're interested in Gaslow, because I was just like, screw it. Nobody seems to know the correct thing to do. I'm just going to blindly pick the highest win rate talents, not the highest pick. And it's working really freaking well for me. Because I was going big game hunter, and I love this talent. Getting 2 more scrap on Gaslow is it just feels good. It feels like freeing. You don't feel as like protective of dropping a turret. You're not just like, oh, I might need it slightly further up in a minute if this wave goes down too quick or something like that. You don't have to be so precious about it. But getting more range on your TNT is really good because they and I still am reminded of this from time to time if I go a day or two without playing Gaslow. They drastically reduced how long it takes for that to explode. And so if you get more range on it, like it's so easy to catch retreating enemy heroes because you have just a little bit more distance to get it in front of them while they're pathing. And if they're going around a wall or any sort of terrain, you know where they're going to be walking. And this extra little bit of distance makes up for what they took away. And the much faster explosion means you're almost guaranteed to land a stun. And God, the things I have pulled off, it's disgusting.
Oh, yeah. And not to mention, I mean, just following up stuff. While most likely you're going to be a bruiser in the solo lane, but if you join your team, any CC that lands now with the new bomb timing is pretty much a bomb that lands. And then you can also throw in a laser because the laser charges up faster than the bomb's stun duration. So you're always going to get a bunch of hits off as long as you can set up, you're watching someone set up. I mean, of course, we have the medallion that could happen in between those two things. But for the most part, if a CC is landed, that bomb's going to land and that laser is going to strike. And so even if you don't go that build, that's still a decent, again, it's CC. It's going to be something that your team can continue to attack a target that whatever ETC slid on, everyone's attacking. Then they get hit by the bomb. Everyone's still attacking them. So even if your damage numbers are low, you still lead to kills that old Gaslow wouldn't have, which is cool. But that's the tricky part about him is they gave him so many more reliable things as opposed to his less reliable things. So if they left all of the numbers where they were, he would be like way too strong. So that's the tricky part about him is everyone's like, oh, like, well, everything's toned down, but it's like, he still feels like a relatively strong hero right now.
Yeah, he's snappier. Like everything is toned down a little bit more, but the laser fires sooner, the TNT explodes sooner. It all kind of comes together to a nice little package to where he can fight, he can brawl in a way that he couldn't do before or with as much frequency as he could do before, because he needed some setup time with the old way he worked, and I do miss how long turrets lasted. But
yeah, and
with
also
more time with it,
turrets and stuff. The one thing is like you get more turrets out right now, right? Like especially if you take big game hunter, I feel like they're half as strong. You don't get twice as many turrets, but you do get like 30 to 40% more turrets with his new system than you did before. And I feel like as him being a bruiser now instead of a melee assassin, it kind of makes sense because now he has more health on the board, so to speak, right?
Yes. Yeah, and a lot of that comes down to landing the laser, because that's where your self-healing is tied into. So yeah.
Honestly, I think he's just being played wrong. Like,
I do too. I do too.
He's not. Yeah. He's not a very good solo laner. I'd put him in line like think Imperious or Thrall. You have an amazing heroic with Gravel Bomb on a 60-second cooldown, which has in it its own text about increasing ability damage, so you know the exact combo you need to do when you land it. Like the whole character's spelled out for you, and ground effects again, so you're not dealing with like getting CC'd and ruining your combo for the most part, unless you get like slept early or something. But Braxis is one of his worst maps because you can't free yourself to rotate and do that combo and perform in that way. And I think that range is really nice on rocket boots, but it's the movement speed that actually matters to me, because he has an amazing auto attack. It's the size of Raynor. So imagine if Stukov, every time he healed, got a movement speed buff, and you just go run in there, get a smack, and then run away. Like, you got to get those auto attacks in, but people are still in love with Turret Town. And I can't blame him, because it was really, really fun, but it had a 2% play rate.
The only thing I really disagree with there is that he's not a good solo laner, because I think he is. And he checks a big box for me on solo laning, which is, are you effective when you report to the fight? And Gaslow is a giant yes. Because he can hold his own. He's not running mana, Kyle, so you can use your abilities to clear the lane. The only thing you're giving up is whatever their current cooldown is if someone else shows up to contest the lane against you.
My point is more that I think a lot of people want to man up the Braxis objective with turrets that are lasting half as long now, dealing half damage, and taking Robo Goblin because they expect to be in these extremely long fights.
Oh, yeah, no, don't do that. You can still solo lane in Braxis, but don't build that way.
But
build for the
somewhere
fight.
in my rundown of Gazlowe opinions there, not Paradox made a face. So what was the face?
Oh no, I'm just listening. Honestly, I'm just listening. Feel free to. No, there was one point where you said his attack range was the same as Raynor, and I was like,
"Oh no, sorry, I meant attack damage." If I said Raynor, it was right.
I was that was the only part that I was a little. But no, everything else. I mean, I running him in the 4-man is an idea I didn't really think of, because it's like, I think like a KT would be better as a follow up than a Gazlowe, but at the same time, it's like, well, let's think about this. What else do you bring to the 4-man? On Braxis, extra turrets is really annoying to deal through. And like the health of the turrets has only reduced by it's 20%, but the damage got cut in half, but the health only got reduced by 20%. So being in the 4-man and just dropping a bunch of turrets on the Braxis point whenever anyone tries to step up is really annoying, because you can't just kill all of them. You have to kind of just wait them out. Well, that's a whole bunch of time that you just won that area. So I could see him being run in the 4-man in Braxis, honestly. It's a little weird because a lot of your damage is connected to your auto attack in the early game. Once you get to like the level 10, you have a lot more spell damage, but in the early game, it's so much auto attacking that I'd be a little concerned. But people have been running Imperious in the 4-man as an assassin these days, so it's like, why not? You know what I mean? There's nothing off the board anymore. Have fun with it. So yeah, I think that's pretty good. But I do agree with Garrett. Like, in the solo lane, you don't have to build post level 10. You don't really have to build to win the solo lane anymore, because team fights are happening relatively often. Even on Braxis, people are grouping up because death timers are so long that if you group up and kill top, you control top for 25 seconds. So it's like post level 10, people are grouping up a lot. If you start losing top as Gaslow and you go down bottom, drop a gravel bomb that wins bottom, well, now your team can rotate up and grab top as well, or boss or whatever. So it's like, you only really need to win the lane from like 1 to 7, or like 1 to 9. And then after that, feel free to roam around and do whatever. So I agree. Like, don't feel committed into building something that allows you to win that 1v1 after level 10. And it's kind of a mistake that like a lot of heroes, like, I guess like Leoric is like my example of like, once you hit 10, feel free to roam a lot more. Don't just commit to trying to win the lane. Like, just roam, because Entomb is crazy. I mean, even March is crazy, but Entomb is really like, it's just so good to like quickly roam, get a pick, and then go back to wherever you need to be.
Yeah, and I think level 1 is the only talent tier before 10 where I would make a big decision based on laning versus like the fight, right? Because if I want to go for the fight, I'm going for rocket boots. If I want to go for just a little more lane presence, I want to go big game hunter. But beyond that, like level 4, all of it is like utility for yourself. It's not helping you clear a lane faster. And then level 7, I want to go overload pretty much no matter what. Although Goblin Fusion is making is starting to make a name for itself as well. But either of them just modify Death Laser. But overload itself gives you two charges, which is good in a fight, and it's better for clearing lanes. So
yeah, it really. I mean, I've just been generally going auto attack build because it has some pretty crazy damage potential if you don't get focused down, and you're relatively tanky, and you end up dropping a bunch of turrets down. But I don't think it's going to be as impactful as just landing a good Gravo into a stun, especially in a team fight. But if you happen to be split away from your team for a decent amount of time, like Dragonshire, even in the late game, because it's just a big map and also a control multiple point, it's nice to be able to just drop people. But to be honest, I haven't played a lot of Gaslow games, so I'm just curious to listen to how you guys think of him. And same thing, I haven't really seen him in a lot of games either, because I'm still coaching a lot, I'm still watching a lot of games, and it's like I'm not seeing almost any Gaslows. So it's definitely one of those weird ones.
Yeah, for sure.
I got a sad little ripple effect though of this Gazlowe and D.Va rework.
Oh,
poor Alexstrasza. She's having a tough time with the bombs and the bombs from another character, and Ana still being in this game. Like that's not I like Ana on my team a lot, and it's fine. That makes it sound like I'm not a delete a character from a game kind of guy, but she's had very clear counters for a long time, and here come 2 reworks that compound her issues in getting heals to her team. She's now the lowest win rate support in the game. Healer.
No, she is.
Does it make sense that I want to like force this conversation into back into like the Gladiator's medallion? Because it's like, what's the issue with Alexstrasza, right? It's like that her heal is this giant telegraph of put your junk here, like ruin our heal right here. And it's just like, do we just look at abilities like that cause over abuse of stuns, of slows, of roots, and just make them snappier, make them work faster, give it the Explodium charge treatment on Gaslow?
I could see that. I actually really still like where Alexstrasza is. I feel like it's a case of like kind of what you guys mentioned earlier, just like people are playing her wrong, which is weird because she's such an old hero that like you wouldn't think that would be the case. But I like where she is because she feels like Deathwing. Deathwing, all of his abilities are slow and telegraphed, and she's a dragon. All of her abilities are slow and telegraphed. And I feel like you have to play around that. And I feel like that's where people aren't doing that. I think there's a question that's asked later, and I was going to bring Alexstrasza into that conversation.
Why don't we take it now?
Yeah, let's do that question because they both are going to have essentially the same answer. So let's see if we can pull that one up.
Which one was this?
It was the one on Dahaka.
Okay, so Ogbar wrote into itncast@gmail.com and asked, what do you think Dahaka is missing to compete for a slot with bruisers like Leo, Zul, Sonya, and maybe D.Va and Gaslow?
So the thing about Dahaka, I actually think that he's extremely strong right now, but his win rate looks really bad, like really, really bad. Yet in the competitive scene, he's still being used a decent amount. And it's because he's all about timing and knowing where to go. So the challenging part about both Dahaka and Alexstrasza is they're so heavily based on long cooldowns and timing and knowing where to put things, but they are both deceptively easy heroes, which is why I think their win rates are super low, even though I think both of them are in good positions, is because Alexstrasza is deceptively easy. Her W is huge. It's hard to miss. Her Q is a point and click ability. Her E is not that difficult. Dragon form, all the abilities are about the same. They're very easy. Her ults are both very easy. Nothing is difficult on Alexstrasza, which makes her seem like a very easy hero to go into. The problem is that knowing where to put your Ws, when to use Dragon, when to use your ult, is something that it seems like you're making the right decision, but you don't know when you're actually being punished, and you don't know what else you should be doing. So it's a hero that if you miss an ability on Muradin, you know that's the reason why you lost that fight. You miss your stun. If you miss an ability you miss your ult on someone like a Ring of Frost on Jaina, you're like, man, I just wasted an ult. I'm a level 9 Jaina in a level 16 fight because I missed an ult. Right. But with Alexstrasza and Dahaka, you don't get punished in the way that other heroes get punished. So Dahaka, if you dig to a bush and you lose a fight, you're not going to think I lost because I dug to the wrong bush or I dug at the wrong time. You're going to lose and you're not going to really know why you lost. And same with Alexstrasza. You drop down a W and you dragon form. You're not going to know, did I dragon form at the wrong time? You're just going to go, we lost that fight. And that's the hardest part about these two heroes, is that they're deceptively hard. They seem easy, but they're actually very difficult heroes. And I honestly think that Dahaka is actually really strong right now, and that buffing him would make him busted. I think Alexstrasza could see some buffs, but I don't know where, because in her best scenarios, she's still really, really good. The problem is that if you use the dragon form in a fight that doesn't have a reward, meaning you use a dragon form and you win a fight, but you just go back to lanes and soak, and then an objective spawns and you don't have dragon form, you just lose because you're a weaker healer than most people outside of dragon form. And the same thing with Dahaka. If you're digging into a fight and walking up to a team, you're one of the slowest heroes because you don't have the ability to mount up, run in and engage, and then do something. You have to slowly walk up, and that can be stopped by roots, that can be stopped by slows, that can be stopped by anything. So you need to dig almost behind an enemy team at the right moment in the fight where they can't leave the fight anymore. Once they're like, this is the fight we're forced to take, Dahaka needs to jump in right there because they can no longer leave that fight. And that's how Dahaka gets value. And if it's already a 4v5 when you're entering the fight, you're just making it an even fight. So how do you get more value? So many Dahakas will dig in too early, and it's just a 5v5, except for it's a 5v5 that you don't have a mount and everyone else does, so you're at a disadvantage. Where if you would have stayed in lane and destroyed 2 turrets, well, guess what? Now you're level 7s and the enemies are level 6, and you dig in, it's a 5v5 that you have an advantage in. And so many people are not abusing the difficult decisions of these two heroes, but they're looking purely at their mechanics. I think Dahaka is actually a really, really powerful hero right now. When I play against good Dahaka, it's infuriating because you can't kill him. He just walks into your backline and you can't kill him. And right as you're about to kill him, he gains his full health bar back once. And you're about to kill him again, he gains his full health bar back twice. You try to kill him again, he uses his E and he's out. And it's like, that's so much zoning potential, but it's all timing. You need to know when to use your ults. You need to know when to do all of that. Where a lot of other heroes, like if you miss your ult, you're like, that's the reason we lost that fight. And you learn it, you fix it, you adapt, you change. But I find that for being a hero that's all about adaptation, he's the hardest to know when to adapt.
Good tagline.
Yeah. So it is mechanics, but it's also timings. So to you, it's like Dahaka is kind of this mountain of significantly more difficult to play than the alternatives, than your other options that are fulfilling a similar role.
Yeah, I definitely think that these two heroes are like the case of like, they seem easy, so a lot of people play them and their win rates just drop, even though I think they're in pretty good spots still. Like Alexstrasza, for the most part, has only really received buffs since she was at a 50% win rate. And like having people move faster should have been better for her because they can move out of the AoEs and move right in as the heal goes. Having her point and click heals, again, like her win rate should have gone up when Ana got all of those nerfs, but it's more the perception of it, right? The Ana's difficult and people know it. So a lot of people that are not confident on healers aren't going to play Ana. So her win rate's going to stay high, despite the fact that she's received several nerfs. Oh, like all over the place, and Alexstrasza hasn't received any. It's a perception thing, I think, first and foremost, then timing, and then mechanics, for sure.
I mean, I think outside of maybe Hanzo, there is no other character like Ana where you realize you suck the second you touch her. Tank moves half an inch and you go, oh, nope, not that one. And just instant information, 5 minutes into the game that you're awful.
Mm-hmm.
Other heroes can, like people walk in your blizzards accidentally or stick a toe in something. You're like, maybe I'm all right at this. But I've got two opinions on this. One, I'm happy that it's skill-based thing and the characters can continue to exist as they are. But it would be really cool to see some modernization of Alexstrasza's talents and maybe abilities with some of these new ideas we have. Like, what if we were doing our abundance, right? The circle?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What if you could activate that early for less healing? What if you could activate a second time and it's spinning and growing to the big heal it's going to be, but I could pop it early? What if now Gaslow has one of these too at level 20, where he gets additional bombs off to the side, a lot like Cho'Gall's Twilight Nova. What if with talents, Alexstrasza was able to make multiple circles that kind of pop out after the heal? Or what if we had some other talents that we have taken from other people, like led Norb, I don't know, abundant stuns. There's lots of options that we've discovered along the way, and some of these newer reworked heroes showcase ways that Alexstrasza could be better.
I see where you're going with that.
Yeah, I could definitely see something where like you could activate your heal early to give a bigger boost. Like you see the Ana grenade coming in, you could pop the heal, and then the grenade doesn't do anything. I mean, I've said, and Anna, this is a hill that I die on, I swear. But I've said that like the way that you should be playing Alexstrasza, Ana's not a counter. And then I've had people pull a clip of me explaining how to play Ana correctly, and they just clipped the part that said Alexstrasza isn't countered by Ana, and then they put that on Reddit and they're like, this is what Not Paradox thinks. I was like, I had an entire explanation about this that you guys just clipped that one piece of.
I did this just today. I posted a replay of us losing in NGS with an Alexstrasza on the team. I was like, and an on the enemy team, and I've gotten a big block about how that's not the case and that shouldn't just be the counter. And I'm like, that's not for you. That wasn't a dig at my Alexstrasza player. That was literally so I could stop half of YouTube talking about that particular part of the draft.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that's like, people are very heated on both sides. Like there's some people that like they've watched my entire rant, they're like, Ana shouldn't be a counter because of this, and then there's other people that are like, no, you're just wrong because green goes out, you throw purple. But the thing is, it's one of the, I guess it's red and hot and purple in Overwatch, but yeah, it's definitely a tricky one, because generally how I recommend you play Alexstrasza is like you'll throw out your W and then you'll use a Q, a dragon form, a W, and a Q. Well, if Ana throws out her grenade at the first W, then she misses the first Q that gets thrown off. She's using a W on full health targets that don't actually need healing. Then by the time they all take damage, they're getting a bigger heal from once you're in dragon form. So her grenade actually would be better just saved until someone starts getting low and then throw the grenade at someone that's low rather than throwing it at the first W that goes out. And that's always the tricky part, is like, it's one of those things where if you're playing it that way, you're actually countering Anas that don't know when to use their grenade. You're countering them because they're going to use it at the worst possible time. They're going to use it on full health targets that are about to get a bigger heal after your grenade ends. And so it's definitely one of those tricky things that's like, but for the average person and the average Ana and average Alexstrasza, or even just in situations outside of objective fights, that can be really frustrating to drop down a W and it gets grenaded. So I don't know. There's a whole mess of things with that interaction that I could go on. That again, that's the hill I die on. So I could go on that forever.
Oh, I've got my own hill, and it's called Zagara Baneling's Revert, and I want those Banelings to be units so I can kill them as they fly towards my team. Not that Zagara needs nerfs or anything like that.
Yeah, man, she's doing so hot right now. Let's really
so
just
much nerfs right now. She is the most popular hero around.
Oh yeah,
we gotta get
that gal down. Yeah. She's too good out there. No, but seriously, go with me on this illusion. This is theming.
I mean, I don't mind if they buff them. Let's say banelings do triple the damage that they do right now, and they can be killed in 2 hits. I'm with you. Is that fair? Is that a fair trade?
Honor Grenade is a unit, and when it gets thrown, Face Melt, Rainer, Penetrating Round can push that grenade.
You just want it to move. You don't want it to blow up.
No. It goes flying back on the enemy team. It goes flying off to the side. Like,
does it change hostility? Like, if it flies back on the enemy team, does it?
No. Because if Ana hits her own team, they get increased healing. If she hits enemies, it decreases their healing. So, it doesn't have to.
Oh, no, sorry. For some reason, I was thinking Morales. My bad, because we were talking about Morales a second ago. Okay.
I'm not. Yeah, but that'd be neat, I guess. But.
I'm with you more. I'm surprised that I'm with you on the Banelings more than I am with the Ana Grenade.
At least I have a stance I can take on you for that now. But.
Yeah, I mean, I like it better. But we have to severely buff Zagara in other places before we go back to. I mean, they already did that with Banelings. They had that. They had it that way for a while. You could kill the Banelings. It was wonderful theming with a Rainer Penetrating Round. Speaking of which, but that's. There's 1,000,001 other conversations I want to have about Zagara, and it's about improving her before I want to deep dive into making Banelings worse. That
was but my bridge. You're focusing on the bridge, not the end point, which is the Honor Grenade being cool and shot in the air.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I'm okay with other stuff. Ana's also in a kind of a weird spot. Like, Nano Boost is great, Grenade is great. Her heals have been nerfed a lot, but she's just kept up because she has so much utility and she works in so many areas. But let's sure, why not? Let's make her grenade interactable. Honestly, they could bring back old grenade build if they could find ways to where you could mitigate, like you could counterplay the grenade, because old grenade build was really strong, and they nerfed it. But that would be an interesting change to be like, oh, let's just bring back old grenade build, but now you can knock back grenades, and it's like, okay, your timing is good enough. You can counter a really strong build.
I can't believe I'm like thinking about, but in Overwatch, you can't do this, so it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I believe you can deflect grenades if you're Genji, but outside of that, I don't think there's any way to interact with grenades.
All right, Kyle, you're allowed to have that interaction, but only if it's Genji.
Only if it's Genji.
Oh, geez. Okay. Well.
You got to go all the way down to the bottom of the win rates and grab that hero.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
All right. So, Kyle, I'm curious about your play. Like how has your draft or your picks been affected in any way by the patch from 2 weeks ago?
Not really. I'm still encoring because it's a fabulous good time. Farming up new mosh pits and walking on top of faces to do them and stuff.
Okay.
When people don't expect I have them.
I walked right into a freaking loudspeaker this week, and I was like, "Oh, come on! I'm smarter than this."
Giving it away. You're giving away those free mosh pits.
It happens. I mean, you're playing a Gaslow game and you want to beat on the keep, but there's a loudspeaker in front of it.
I mean, Diablo's still first pick, first ban in my territory, which is a delight, so that my main is really well respected and I can do it early, and the Imperious nerf was super helpful in that to make sure I don't just get turbo exploded. Mal'Ganis is still very high on my list after that, and Johanna's Johanna, and she's sometimes needed, but it's not my favorite in the world. Like, tanking right now is a really nice little rock, paper, scissors, and this patch didn't change that, though I miss the rubies. I do like, I like the sudden appearance of a tactical change that meant I should go left when I would normally go right. And that was just an interesting gameplay feature.
Makes sense.
I think it's still good for heroes that are moving around a lot. Like, I think a 20-second cooldown is still good if you have a really good reason to do it, rather than just picking it every single time. I think 20 seconds is a good number to be like, we have Mal'Ganis who's going to be moving around the fight a lot. Let's go Ruby. But if you've got someone who's a little bit more like standstill during fights, like Diablo right now is more like charge in, flip, auto attack a bunch, and it's like you're not going to be moving around to pick up a bunch of rubies. So I think in some situations you're like, yeah, I'm not going to go Ruby with this tank, but I might go Ruby with this tank. And I like that spot, personally. I like the 20-second cooldown on it. I think it's in a good spot.
That's fair. Yeah. And particularly with someone like Diablo, who is auto attack build, I'd say 70% of the time for me. The choice structure there and deciding if I'm going to break melee range to pick up rubies usually goes in the favor of just meleeing the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's
outside of that, like the Deckard nerf did affect my support picks, because right now for solo league I am tank and support secondary, and it happens from time to time, and I got a little Brightwing in, a little bit of Malfurion.
I had a great Brightwing game in draft this week.
She's doing great.
One of those occasions where you're just like, I guess I'm the support. I always forget how freaking effective she can be because I go so far in between playing her. But I think
she's surprisingly good. I think you see Brightwings sometimes that just like stand around, you get the passive heals, and you're like, man, I really wish we had a different healer. But then like if you get someone who uses the Z effectively, it's like, man, like I feel like I'm getting ancestrals left and right.
Yeah,
you
I'm getting chunky heals. I'm getting movement speed and spell armor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if they go blink heal, you're getting the chunky phase shift on top of, you know, interstitial, you know, mini chunks from the blink heal.
Yeah.
It's just
I can't play anything else but hyper shift, honestly, because the whole going off to pixie charm things is just such a brain fart off in a different direction from where my focus is, which is big heals with things like safety dust at 13 and blink heal and being just a shifty little weird frog beast.
Yeah. I can't take blink heal. I don't know why. Like if I'm gonna Z, it's generally gonna be trying to heal a frontliner because that's just what the Z is gonna heal the most. And it's like, and I feel like I just die if I don't go Emerald. I mean, I guess you could Z in and just jump away immediately, but then you're kind of wasting an ult. I feel like if I'm Zing on a tank, I push everyone away. Anyone who's towards my team gets stunned and pushed further towards my team. Everyone else gets split off. Like, and it's like a 50-second cooldown or something. Like, I can't take Brightwing without Emerald win anymore. Even though I think it's the lower win rate ult, but whatever.
Only by what point? No, actually, Emerald win has taken the lead, but we're at a 22% pick rate there. So they're very close, and I agree with you. I am definitely of the philosophy of I want more of a World of Warcraft healer philosophy, which is I want these guys to be topped off all the time. I want everyone to feel like ultimate confidence, so they're making crazy plays. Otherwise, if they're feeling underhealed, I'm gonna have a little timid gray main, and I don't want a timid gray main. I want a cool gray main.
I think we all died on the hill this week, right? All right, I've got one to die on.
Okay.
Y'all are cowards if you aren't picking Greater Polymorph at 1.
Ooh.
I love this talent.
There's lower cooldown on your Z. There's Bribewing.
Oh, there's so many more. There's a machine gun of polymorphs as long as you're good with your arcane flare. It's delightful. I love it.
That's okay. That's a hill I'll fight you on. But
wouldn't the range increase make you more of a coward?
No, because you're calling your shot that I don't miss arcane shot. And that's why I'm taking this.
So you're saying that polymorphing at range means the shot is that much harder to make. Therefore,
you're getting 7. No. The important part about Greater Polymorph is the 7-second cooldown on polymorph if you hit the center of your arcane flare. That's the important part. The range increase is just a nice little extra. You're just getting way more frequent polymorphs as long as you are skillful with your Q.
I don't know if I want to divert the brain power to because spitting arcane flare is for healing.
I'm gonna pause you there. Paradox, you remember when people said that you said that people clip you like very specific points to win their arguments?
Yeah.
Could someone out there please go and find one of the 17 episodes where Kyle Fergusson said the way that you win as a healer is doing the most damage?
Oh yeah. Breaking 25,000, yes.
Yeah. You know how you do more damage as Brightwing? You land the center of your arcane flares.
Of course I do, because I want to heal my friends. But I'm saying that my brain, just the idea of having to hit the polymorph target with the flare, that sounds hard.
You don't have to hit the polymorph target. Oh no, well it's within 2. Yeah, you're right. It is within 2 seconds of being polymorph.
It's usually easier to hit the target if they're polymorph because it slows them a bit.
Yeah, because you should be using it on a hero that had a
try to do W first.
Yeah.
But I just like it. The only reason you're not wrong. That's still something that you should be trying to do. But like The only reason I'm confused is like that is a very competitive tier. Like level 1 on Brightwing is a very competitive tier. Like on Braxis, not taking bribe is rough because like a good stealing of the enemy camp on the soul lane is game changing. Or like or like again Dragonshire or something to be able to teleport more often is huge. Like you're winning those areas, but I mean, hey, you know, if it works for you,
if it's a nice hill,
I would like to point out that very recently, the game I in reference was a Hanamura, so didn't really feel like going bribe, and I felt like I could survive without hypershift. But
yeah, I mean, you can't bribe the samurai camp anymore, so that's I feel it.
Yeah,
I feel it.
Yeah, no, it's just like that is my secret little like favorite thing to do on Brightwing. I am not shutting down either of your defenses of hypershift or pixie charm. You're absolutely right. But oh man, Great Polymorph, just one of my favorite talents to take that tilts my team and just brings me endless joy.
She is a fascinating support in that once you learn her, you can always ride that bike again. Whereas so many healers and other characters in this game, if I don't touch them once a week, I can't play him anymore. I can't land Arcana swaps at the moment when he's not in the exact meta I need him for.
Yeah, there's a few heroes like that for me that it's like, if I take too long of a break, Rexar and like Samuro and stuff, like even Vikings, like those are like the worst cases for me. It's like I haven't played them in a while, so I just feel like I can't function. But the one that's gotten me recently is Kira. I felt like I used to be pretty good with Kira, and like I tried to play her recently because I feel like she's in a good spot. I missed everything. Any E or trait that I tried to use, even on walls, it did not matter. I missed everything. And I was like, I get like that was the biggest feeling of like rusty I've ever felt. And I never even like stopped playing HOTS. I just like played awfully on Kira.
Makes a lot of sense. I've been getting warnings from our good buddy Deribo Kyle that Kira is the ultimate Rexar counter right now, just completely eating his lunch.
That's what we run into Rexar on my team too.
I have not personally run into it yet, but also I didn't mean this has become such like a personal pick discussion here. But since we're in it, I think Sonya might be my one trick again. I think I'm still playing Rexar, but my Sonya just feels so dialed right now.
I don't know if it's not paradox, but does Kira ride the bear and disconnect early without kicking to land near Rexar? Why is it a counter?
I think it's just because Kira can gap close further than most people. So if Rexar is far away from his structures, she can just use a trait to get like halfway there and then use the E. And with her E, you don't even need to spin all the way around. You just do a quick E, hit Q, auto W is like 60% of Rexar's health. So, I mean, it's not a perfect counter, but it's like if he makes a mistake, she can punish a mistake much easier and faster than most other heroes, where most other ones, like if he makes a mistake, he can usually still get pretty far away. If Rexar doesn't make any mistakes, he really doesn't have a great counters. But if everyone's going to make mistakes, highest levels of play, so the best players I've ever seen in HGC playing at their absolute best, they're making mistakes, several mistakes still. So it's like he's going to make mistakes, and Kira has like the easiest chance of punishing. One small mistake turns into he goes from 100% health to 40% health in one combo at almost any level.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, anyway, we're nearing the end of the show, and we had one more email to take. And since we already took Ogbar's, I figure we'll just keep going. Take Gibb's question and put a cap on this discussion. So Gib wrote in and said, do you think the gradual return and rise of competitive play will bring back the notion of prescriptive talent builds? I haven't seen much salt over talent since HGC went away. It happens sometimes, but they're usually wrong. All right, Gib, let us know your real thoughts. I'm concerned that we may go back to the days of people tilting and throwing because someone on their team took a talent they didn't like. I think Gib kind of has a point here. Kyle, I know you play ETC, and so people have very strong opinions of how you build your hero, but I think with a couple main exceptions, I feel like folks aren't looking too closely at your talent builds. And if they are, I feel like it's because they're losing, they're mad, and they're looking at something to lash out about.
When I think of the extreme one, I immediately think of Alarak. That was the one where we dramatically, over the course of multiple HGC seasons, went from only Lightning build back to only Discord, and then somewhere in between with Telekinesis. I'm not sure if, like, Kael'thas ever really suffered certain talent restrictions due to HGC. There was, of course, there's the age-old argument of would Pyroblast have done better than Phoenix and vice versa in this particular game that we can argue about. Not Paradox. Do you remember any HGC extremes that developed?
So, not necessarily. I mean, well, not from Kael'thas. Kael'thas, there was just one particular case during HGC. There was a everyone was going Phoenix and no one was going Convection. And there was one guy in Storm League. He was like top 10 GM. His name was like Cool Guy Chris or something. And he played only Convection and Pyroblast. Like, people trash talked him the entire time. I think one of the challenging things about this is that so I was an analyst back in HGC even before I started my YouTube channel. I got paid from teams to go over replays and break down different things, and it's like I guess the hard part is what Gibbs said is kind of right. Like, people think that the build that the pros are going is the build that you have to play, but meta builds are more like, they're meta if everyone's doing everything that they should be. What ends up happening is that build is the best build. But if everyone's not doing what they should be, so many other builds start popping up that are much better. I just had this conversation with someone else that they said, hey, you put on your website or whatever, they're like, you like this one build on white main, and you said that it was meta. And they're like, but I like auto attack build. It really works for me. And I said, keep playing it. If something's working for you, keep doing it. Meta is assuming everyone's doing everything right. Now, if everyone's playing absolutely perfectly, then in the first 3 seconds of any fight, that fight is going to be decided. Because generally, when you get to level 20, if you watch, let's say, Kyle, you're in NGS right now. We watch NGS teams, level 20. They're all coordinated. The first 3 seconds of the fight, one team lands a great silence. That fight's over. It doesn't really matter what happens the rest of that fight because one team can't interact for the majority of where the damage is going to be applied. So the first 3 seconds of any fight is where everything needs to happen. And so the builds in meta builds anyways, especially for HGC, are all built upon that first 3 seconds of a fight. You're going to have talents that are like really weird, but they're good for that one thing. And you're going to have a lot of things that are like early game, like wave clear, and late game, not so much. So like Leoric, like you could go with the longer range, which is slightly better for like long fights, but everyone goes Neil Peasants because it gives you the wave clear needed so that your team can interact a little bit better, keep up, so that when that last fight does happen, you're not down a level. Everything in meta is all built upon getting your team slight advantages up to 1 point where you win that first 3 seconds. But in Storm League and in random games, and even in coordinated games outside of the highest levels of coordination where everyone has a full roster that they can play literally any hero, meta is kind of irrelevant. But with that being said, what Gib is saying is kind of a problem. The more competitive there is and the more websites that show these competitive builds, people do kind of go for those even more so than higher win rate builds on hot slogs. And sometimes a higher win rate build on hot slogs is just better for those chaotic matches where everyone's not doing exactly what they need to do. It's better to just go the highest win rate build on hot slogs. So it is certainly a problem, and it will become more of a problem. But I hope that people can be a little bit better at just trusting their team to pick what they want, because even telling someone to play a meta build if they're not used to playing it, even if it is better in this situation, or a higher win rate build on hot slogs, even if it's better in this situation, they might not be used to playing it. So telling someone on your team to play a different build is almost never going to be advantageous.
Well said. I'm curious to see what happens. It's been a while since we've really been in the shadow of competitive play. It's not that. I mean, it's still grassroots, right? But there's a lot of hype behind CCL. There's a lot of production value behind it. There's a lot of eyeballs on it, more than usual.
Yeah,
it feels like so.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty big.
Yeah, they announced their pool of 200 players, which if we're doing, I guess it would be what 6 times 8 because you're allowed to have a fill. Like that's still a lot of people who got themselves amped up to participate in some competitive play, be like, I'm into this, I'm willing to commit 4 months to this and what have you. If they don't get picked, there's a world where we have a whole bunch of spin-off tournaments because everyone's just antsy.
Well, I mean, even just the events that we've got running NGS, this is the I believe the most teams that they've ever had in any season. And they kind of had a bit of a dip, like with HEC, they had a lot of teams and then it went down, and it's back up to, I believe, more than they've ever had. And what I'm surprised about is how many actual like big names there are on NGS teams that I've never seen before. Like Kyle, you're on an NGS team, and if I'm wrong, this is the first time you've been on an NGS team, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
It's all from CCL and can participate in that and being like, oh, this is kind of fun.
Oh yeah, I Kyberries, Unileska, I believe Jazzy. There's a lot of people that they kind of got the itch with certain events that they've joined, and because they got that itch, they're like, we've got to do NGS. So I've seen a lot of really cool people in NGS this season that I haven't seen, and just a ton more. So NGS is bigger than it's ever been. There's also other side events like Chili Mountain, the Panda Cup, like. Chili Mountain's been running a ton of events as well. There are a lot of these events going on right now that even if I think CCL is going to be great for showing, again, another drafted set of teams, but we still have Chili Mountain and NGS for teams that have been practicing for years, teams that can pull in whoever they want to, because we saw with Celeb, which is now VGM, I think, that's a solid set of players that have been winning against almost everyone. Well, now instead of drafting those 5 players onto 5 different teams, we now have a set of 5 players that's what you need to hit, what everyone needs to reach. Their goal is to beat this best team rather than splitting up those 5 players and we have 5 teams that might not be as good as the best 2 teams. So it's each of these tournaments has their own thing that's going to be great to follow and great to watch. I like CCL because there's a story to it. You get to it's not just the same team you've seen forever. It's like, okay, well, there's a couple of like my friends on this team, or there's a couple people that I've been watching, a couple streamers. So there's like a story to it. And it's 12 weeks. So it's like, you get to see if they lose a game, do they adapt? We've seen the first season of CCL, the team that lost like the majority of the games in the beginning ended up being the team that won the entire event, and they adapted, they changed their play style, they learned from it. And so it's like, it's one of those things that all of these events are going to be a ton of fun. There's going to be a lot to learn from it. So I'm very excited for all of them for sure.
We'll have to see what happens. I can see it now. Oh, you're not playing X build that I saw in Y tournament. What are you doing? You scrub.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there's also like the wild things that happen too. I mean, Polita's team was running Drain build Gul'dan with Rain of Destruction, and they eliminated a team that everyone thought was going to get in like the top 4, which is 4G Sports. 4G Sports' team was an old Open Division team that was all awesome. Great players, each one individually awesome players. They got eliminated against a team that was running Drain build Gul'dan with Rain of Destruction. So sometimes you get to see weird things that changes it up. That's what I loved about Octalysis back in HGC, is like all their builds were completely different from meta. All their comps were completely different from meta, and it got people thinking. So that's what it was my favorite team, because it got people thinking. But yeah, I know part of other Gibbs' question was he was talking about my video that I was kind of breaking down one of the competitive players' builds, and I said that I didn't really like parts of it. And sometimes that is the case. Like, it's so hard to pull people off, even if you are an analyst. There's an analyst, he's a coach now in Europe, named Cascon. He's actually one of the potential picks for CCL. Cascon, he messaged me about something that he said. He said that he never really liked that Malfurions used strangling vines in which is the talent that reduces the healing by 40% if you get hit by the root. He said he never liked that people took that talent in HGC because it never got more value than Tree End. And he pulled out like a spreadsheet of every game that Malfurion was played and how much damage it reduced and how much, like, all this stuff. And I was like, my friend, like, I just made a video where I recommended it, but he changed my mind. Like, I recommended Strangling Vines. He gave me this whole spreadsheet, this whole thing about it. He explained every detail, and I was like, there hits a point where, like, you can just say you're wrong. And that's where I was at. I was like, I was honestly wrong about this talent because this guy pulled out a spreadsheet and math and everything. And I'm like, I feel you. So I mean,
at least he changed it based on facts. Whereas I was saying all the time because the one time the arcane orb came flying over the wall and it got absorbed by a Trident, I knew we all would have died. So now I have this religion of Trident going on.
You gotta take the broad, man. But yeah, I was like, okay, so I changed my mind. I've done that a couple times with things, but it gets difficult for some players. There was one or two of those talents that I was analyzing back in HGC that, like, I kept trying to convince people. I'm like, this talent is not good. It's never getting value. And, like, some people just never change their mind. And in that video, I think when I was talking about what Gib was saying, it was a Kerrigan video, high level Kerrigan play. I said that I didn't really like his build because it required a setup where in Storm League, you don't really, if you're playing Kerrigan, you want a combo, right? What they were doing in that build was that it was more like if everyone's doing everything perfectly, this is where this build comes in, which was, if one stun landed, he followed up with his W. Instead of doing like a pull combo, he just followed up with his W, and then he immediately threw an Ultralisk out. And then that CC'd after the W was over. And so it was just a heavy stun lock build, which I was like, again, if everyone's doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, this build is good. But I don't recommend it because everyone's not always doing what they're supposed to be doing. So that's why I sometimes tell people, like, the builds that are perfect for competitive and coordinated play are not the builds you want to run. It's the same with team comps too. There's some heroes I love for competitive that in Storm League I'm like, not sure about that hero here.
Well, you see this in like a lot of competitive games, really, especially if there is a publicly broadcasted esport. Like, it doesn't, like, Kyle, we used to have this conversation back when we were covering StarCraft 2. Like, I'm failing to think of a good example. I don't know. Marine King lifting off his freaking command center and landing on the golds at the beginning of the map. I wouldn't recommend most players try that.
Sure.
But it worked for him in that one game. Yeah, exactly. And then the same thing, you see this in Hearthstone a ton, that people, like, you go over and look at games played on a certain deck list on a site like HS Replay, and you're like, why do you still have like right now, Face Hunters, like, why are you running these traps? Oh, it was because it was a Face Hunter deck that took off the first week of the new expansion. So it just got this snowball effect in the most games played, but you know what you should be running is freaking Explosive Trap, because there's just so many little minions in being played in the game right now. And so,
teach me how to Face Hunter.
Keep going Face and run Explosive Trap.
The cancer of Face Hunter.
Yeah.
Well, I got a particular scenario, and it came up in those replays I was watching this week. Diablo. He's got an amazing build. I love Feast on Fear, into Life Leech, Diabolic Momentum, Cruelty, Domination. Domination in particular, really, really awesome talent where you get to do the Shadow Charge a second time.
Sure.
But if you're in bronze and you don't land your shadow charges, domination gets no value. So in this world where suddenly people are going to get bombarded with top level builds, I don't know what to tell this person, because there's a part of my mind that says, training wheels, man, like, go full flame stomp build. It's way easier to do. You're just spamming that button. You live a lot. You get spell power. Lightning breath is easier because you don't have to make your own combos with Apocalypse and do these fancy things that Diablos do. But that's not helping them for when they get up to the level where they need to hit every shadow charge. So how do you have you have a build you know is good for you, and there's this amazing build you should be doing. When do you make that change over? Or should you never switch and just be bad till you're good? So that's one of the hardest things as a coach. Like, I spend more time coaching than really anything else now. And it's really difficult. You have to really explain it in that mindset. One, I never, if I'm playing with people,
I never give advice because who am I? There was one time I remember when I was playing Hearthstone, when Hearthstone came out, I hit Legend like within the first couple seasons, and I was playing Shaman, which was like a really weak class at the time. And I played against a Shaman who was just playing wrong so much. And so I messaged him after the game and I was like, you should do this instead of this. And he's like, why are you giving me advice? Who are you? Like, this is the dumbest thing. And I was like, I was just trying to help. But I was like, it's kind of true. If someone messaged me after I lost, I'd be a little tilted. And I don't want to hear about what some random dude says. And I was like, so I just stopped giving unwarranted advice. If someone is to ask me, I actually have their attention for a little while, but in the middle of a game, I'm never going to say, don't do this build because of blank, because it'll be different if they ever rank up. So if I'm actually sitting down and I'm coaching someone, I might say, in your rank and you cleanse someone, they're not going to move. They're going to just die right there. When people in low ranks get stunned, they take their hands off the keyboard. They go make themselves a sandwich. Like, that's what happens. I cleanse people. I'll play on a Smurf and I'll cleanse someone. They just stand there and they die. So I just stopped going cleanse. So I give people a different build in low ranks and I say, here's this build that you're going to run until about plat, and then you can shift. And this is the new play style. But it's a really challenging aspect of it, is like, there are different play styles and builds. And the hardest part is like, so many people, and this is something that always bothers me about a lot of coaches in esports in general. I got coaching in a couple other games because I wanted to learn from the best in bigger games. And it's kind of a pain because so many people just go with what works for them. And for me, like, if you have a 70% win rate in a build that I think is ridiculous, you still have a 70% win rate, right? Like, I'm going to let you do what's already working for you. I'm just going to help you on the areas that aren't working for you by giving you ideas of what might work. But so many coaches, like, they'll just give their play style to people in low ranks, even though in low ranks, people aren't playing the same way. And you have to do things different. That's how people are getting stuck. You got to give them something that's completely different. And it's the same thing with Diablo. I'm right there with you. That exact example you said. I think auto attack Diablo is great for every level of play, but that level 16 talent is the difference. If you can push someone into a wall, flip them, and push them into your team, you won that fight in competitive because your team will follow up on that. But if you do that in random ranks and you can't do it correctly, or even if you do it correctly, your team doesn't follow up, it'd be better to just have multiple flips, just flip all day long. But it's definitely a tricky one because it's like it's hard to give people advice when you have the time of Twitter, right? Like you're in the middle of a game and you're like, I need to explain that this build isn't good here, but it's good later. And you have to do it in 140 characters, or I guess 280 characters now. It's really, really tough. Even with like hour-long coaching, like I don't like spending a lot of time on replays when I'm coaching people because I find it too much is like teaching people what not to do, but not teaching people what to do. And so like, there's so many things in coaching that like the aspect of teaching people in a way that they're actually going to learn is different from just teaching people or just telling people what to do. So it's like in game, I never give advice. If I'm ever playing it, I never give advice because you just don't have enough time to cover the nuanced aspect of like giving advice. It just doesn't really work. Well, sorry, that was a really long draw.
I think it's a perfect cap to the whole episode, and it's like it makes me want to roll into the outro because now I feel like you should be plugging your coaching services.
Oh yeah, I don't mean to do that.
No, you should because I think like I've always been a believer of that. How you can improve depends very much on where you currently are. Like saying you probably need to learn something different in bronze than if you're in plat or diamond makes a lot of sense to me. And I don't hear that point thrown around a lot. So
yeah, it's tricky. Like I hate smurfing, but it was a great learning experience to smurf through every rank because it does teach you that a lot of the things you want to tell people to do don't work. People they just don't do what they should. They just aren't where they should be. And there are a lot of cases where people are going to just stop and talk. Like anytime I found like there were times where I was like, hey, next time we get in this situation, we should do this instead. And it was just like it was something so like nonchalant, and it just started this huge argument. I'm like, I wasn't blaming anyone. I was just explaining, like, next time we're in this situation, which we will get in this situation again. This was level 10 fight. It's going to happen again. I was like, next time we need to do this. And they went off. And I was like, so I've just learned, like, if someone on your team dies, you can no longer type. If no one dies on your team, you're free to shock call all day long. The second that someone dies, you say anything, they're going to take that as a personal hit against them.
Unless they hit you with the Kyle Fergusson patented my B. They say my B, and you're like, okay, all right, they're open to continuing to converse. So like hearing that, or I like reading that pop up my team chat.
Interesting work for like the conversation's sake. Like, you know, that someone hits you with your talent build is trash. It's tough, but I do like hitting them with the interesting.
Interesting. Let's talk about it.
And I don't even say that part. Like, if they want to continue and give me more information, the problem is they don't always have more information because they were just listening to X streamer who said talent bill is trash. So they know that part. That nugget is available freely. But what part of this is trash is beyond them. So let them make the decision if they want to go further.
Yeah,
and that's something that kind of happens in life too. Like I watched this like huge documentary about like water, and I was like, oh man, like I this is something I'm like passionate about now. And then like I start talking to someone, and I can't remember all the little facts that got me interested, but all I remember is like, water. You need to listen to me. This is important, but I can't remember why it's important. But there's something really important about water I want to share with you, and I'm passionate about it. And like that happens to me all the time, where it's like I'll watch like a whole documentary, and I'll be like, nuclear power. We need to use thorium instead of uranium because thorium can't be used for weapons, and it's everywhere. And then they're like, well, how do we do it? They're like, how does it work?
Agency. They're not painting because you make them paint. They need to paint of their own volition.
Exactly. They're like, but how do we implement this? And I'm like, I don't remember that part of it, but all I know is thorium.
Yeah, that talent is bad. Why?
I don't remember that
because I watched a Grubby video once.
This is where like everyone's going to remember Strangling Vines is bad, but they're not going to remember why. They're just going to be like, I remember Strangling Vines is bad, and I remember the streamer Cascon, but I've never watched Cascon, so I just don't know. And if I'm mispronouncing his name, I apologize, because you watch a streamer and they never say their own name. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wish we could orchestrate a 5-man where each player was only a fan of one Heroes of the Storm streamer or creator. Like I want a diehard Grubby fan, a diehard Not Paradox fan, a diehard Into the Nexus fan, and let's find 2 more to go in and just see what diehard beliefs they have.
Oh, I think that would be pretty funny. And just like, and make sure that you specifically ask them questions about which talents are better when there's disagreements. I know like Leon and Russ have very different builds for Garrosh, and like they will go at it. I mean, they're both professional people, but like when they're talking about the other person's build, it's always funny to hear them be like, well, and so it'd be funny to see, but at the same time, for me, it's like the game's very nuanced and it's hard to know what actually is the best. And sometimes there are 2 things that are very good that you don't need the disagreement. Like there's just situations where one's better than the other. It's
exactly
such a difficult game.
There's no point in arguing you made a mistake when you pick Stitches. I mean, that's one of those just truths of the world.
Hey man, if tanking teaches you that you can be a god one day and trash the next, Stitches probably feel the very same way.
I think the thing that bothers me the most about Stitches is how people, since we're on this conversation, is when people pick Gorge, I immediately get disappointed only because, and I'm not even saying Bile's good, and I'm not saying Gorge is bad. I'm saying I get disappointed because we no longer have a tank. We have someone who's going to sit in the back line waiting for a hook, and we can't step up on an objective. And this happens all the time. It happens way more in low ranks.
Kyle has this with mounted Bush Alarax, and it's very much the same thing. It's like, oh, they took this talent, and now they're just going to do this one thing for the rest of the game.
Yep. And it bothers me because this happened, it happens to me all the time, but I kind of just joke about it now. But literally, I was on Volskaya the other day, and I was like, oh, I'm not I don't think he's gonna do it. But we got on Volskaya, and early game, everything was going great. But then we got to the next point, and it was level 10s. And we all start walking to the point, and Stitches goes walk in the opposite direction, tries for a hook, and we die before he gets back. And it's he literally moved this far, and we were dead by that. The fight was over because we just didn't have a tank. And he just had to get that hook, but we didn't know because he was walking in first. We're like, oh, he's going in. Then he turns around, and we all get CC'd. He goes for a hook, misses. And then he comes back, and it's we didn't have a tank for a huge portion of that fight. And it's just that's what bothers me the most is it's when you have a talent that makes your tank play not like a tank, then it's annoying. That's why I'm if you go Bile, at least you're in there. Even if it's not a good talent, at least you're in there and you're a tank for us. I play Bile, but whatever.
It's my salty meme right now, but I also legitimately never want to see him in my game at the moment. I've had so many bad experiences over the past 2 months with Stitches, but anyways, I think it's gonna wrap it up for this show, folks. If you want to write in, you have emails, you have questions, send them to itncast@gmail.com. If you're a patron, you can drop us a message in the question channel on our patron Discord and skip the inbox entirely. Not Paradox as our guest this week. Where can everyone find you if they want to watch a stream, if they want to get some coaching? Where are you at?
So as far as where most of my stuff is, I'm on YouTube. You just type in Not Paradox, you'll find it. You'll find all my stuff all through September. I pre-scheduled, so there's no medallion in any of the videos, unfortunately. But I pre-scheduled a video for every other day for high-level hero guides. I will admit I went a little crazy with the ads. So if there's not the actual YouTube ads, I just do a 1-minute ad read. But so you can always skip 1 minute whenever I start talking about the ads. But overall, that's what I'm doing all through September. I'm just for mine are a little overdone.
I'm gonna walk that back for you. Support your creators. Watch the ads. Creators. Maybe check out the URL if there's a URL. If you don't buy anything, when you check the URL, it does help.
Yeah, it does help. So that's what I'm gonna say is they're fun, they're great. But yeah, most of the time I just do Heroes of Storm content. I have all sorts of guides for almost every hero in the game, and every guides for every map in the game. Some are a little outdated, but you get the general idea. So check out Not Paradox on my website. I do have it's mostly just coaching. I do have guides for all sorts of strategy guides as well as hero builds that I recommend. If there's not a build that I recommend, I just literally say on their highest win rate on Hotslogs so that you at least find that. And if not, just go to Hotslogs because you're going to have that anyways. But on my coaching, my whole idea is my goal in coaching is to help you win and not help you not lose, because I can't tell you how many teams focus so heavily in the draft on what counters what, how do we counter this, how do we counter that. For me, if you're getting team coaching, I'm going to grab your set of heroes and I'm going to smash them together and find comps for every map that is more about how you win rather than how you not lose, right? Same thing with individual play. It's I said that earlier. I was I don't really like overcommitting into replays because it's more of watching what not to do rather than actually telling you, hey, this is how you win the game. Their core dies, you win the game. This is how you get there. Rather than just telling you, oh, you died here, and if you would have actually moved up here, you wouldn't have died. That's gone. There's my whole long plug. That's where you can find me and everything about that. So, yeah. Not Paradox.
Folks,
there you go.
Do it. Not Paradox making some of the best Heroes content out there, so make sure you go and check it out. We want to thank our patrons for supporting this show. If you want to support us here at Into the Nexus, check out patreon.com/ITN. You're going to get access to the Discord. You're going to be able to sign up for our monthly game nights, and you're going to help not only support us, but support our guests as well, because we do pay them for their time. Huge thanks to our producers, Declan H, Cheesy Bob, Chris K, Mike C, and Sean B. If you want to check out back catalog episodes of Into the Nexus, just head on over to amove.tv. Kyle, when you're not doing this, where can people find you?
You can find me at kylefergusson.com, 2 S's in Fergusson. Look up season 6 of DM Gives Inspiration for 5th edition Dungeon Master tips in a short form 15-minute podcast. You can also find my videos over at youtube.com/KyleFergusson for gameplay, NGS replays, all that sort of business. And then the crafted guide videos are over at youtube.com/HeroesHearth. Go give those a watch.
Nice. I'm Garrett Art on Twitter. As I mentioned, amove.tv is where you can not only find this podcast, but every single other one that I produce. If you like Hearthstone, check out The Angry Chicken. If you like World of Warcraft, check out WoW Killer. Just put out a new episode yesterday, Taliesin and myself, talking about the latest Afterlives short. Has really good music. New one came out today. It was cool. You should go check them out. I like World of Warcraft. It's fun. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. Until next time, everybody, good luck and have fun.
Take care.